In a casino owned by a man named Murugan, Lupin scores on the roulette table and with the ladies. Jigen, meanwhile, threatens a guard into revealing the main safe's location. They crack the safe, but are caught on camera. Jigen shoots it out and they grab their prize as Murugan learns of their infiltration. Lupin and Jigen make their way out, but as if on cue, Zenigata is right on their tail. Deciding on using more cuffs than usual, their cars are chained together. This is short-lived as Lupin slips free and leaves him with a false leg. While Lupin ponders the very important decision of which jewel to give to which girl between the casino woman and Fujiko, Zenigata is stonewalled by Murugan, claiming nothing was stolen. Being shown the door, Zenigata passes a man who looks and smells weird. The man, Hangman, is charged by Murugan to bring back the stolen jewels, demonstrating his skills haven't dulled by shooting up his office and Murugan's cat. You know, in case you weren't sure he was evil or anything. Fujiko arrives at Lupin's hideout and uses sleeping gas to knock Lupin out and take all the jewels for herself. With no way to really track her, Lupin decides to take it easy, but he and Jigen both sense they're being watched. Answering a phone call demanding the jewels back with refusal, Lupin is shot at in response. Hangman tosses them a Hangman Tarot card as a calling card to let them know who they're dealing with too. They decide to drive away, but he intercepts them and starts shooting. Jigen tries to deflect by saying they don't have the jewels, but realises he'll be killed either way. Saving him, Lupin claims Jigen was lying but is shot at himself. Hangman runs out of bullets and backs off, but Jigen stops Lupin from firing by pointing out that his barrel was sealed. Back at their hideout, Jigen suggests just saying where the jewels are, but Lupin doesn't want to make Fujiko a target. Hangman's tracked them down by now and makes use of some fancy gun work to show it. Lupin charges out and cuts off a tree branch for a slingshot. He loads in some wine and fires it at Hangman, who shoots the bottles out of the sky. After one last bundle drenches him, Lupin then fires an incendiary, setting Hangman on fire. He jumps in the river, but Lupin suspects he's still alive. Jigen then uses Fujiko's sleeping gas on Lupin, and he and Goemon track her down. Goemon interrupts her midnight swim by opening the drain, and Jigen threatens to let her go if she doesn't give him the jewels back. Lupin drives to them, still tied up, but Zenigata uses a giant handcuff to trap him. Goemon cuts him free and the gang run off with the jewels in hand. Hangman is a character I kind of wish we saw more of in the series. We don't get much information on him besides him just being someone in the criminal underworld who's good at killing. They certainly set him up for another appearance, but unfortunately nothing comes of it in the end. It's also worth noting that he's dispatched in a method often used in early Series 1, namely being set on fire. Lupin wakes up in the Wanted Club, owned by Madame Killer, on sale for auction. The highest bidder is a gangster boss, but he's outbid by a latecomer, Dr. Mad, who is apparently a big sponsor for the club itself. As the gangster boss leaves, he's outed by Killer as Zenigata and beaten up by the Wonder Twins apparently as retribution. Lupin tries to coax an answer out of Killer on her motive to no avail, but he does learn that Mad is holding Jigen thanks to her. He's driven out to Mad's castle and Mad tells him he wants Lupin's mind as his latest test subject before firing a tranquilizer at him. Lupin awakens on a beach, running in the direction of a woman's scream. Fujiko is also here, being chased by two men. Lupin fights them but notes they're like punching rocks, and also that they can dent rocks. Mad, watching, pulls a switch and blows them up, leading Lupin to realise the men are cyborgs. He and Fujiko have little time to catch their breath though, as they're attacked by another one. Lupin manages to grab the cyborg's gun, but he's seemingly impervious to bullets. He keeps firing, finally finding a weakness by knocking open a chest cavity. Lupin and Fujiko keep moving, but the weather grows foggy, so they take shelter in a cave. Lupin doesn't notice Fujiko being kidnapped until the fog clears, however, and goes to look for her. Dodging a rockfall and taking out more cyborgs, Mad calls for DX to enter the fray. DX being none other than Jigen. Lupin finds Jigen tied to a branch and cuts him down. With his guard down, Jigen garrotes Lupin before he can make a move. Lupin grabs his lighter and burns him, revealing it was just another cyborg before taking out another group. Digging at the sand and revealing a metal floor underneath, Lupin calls out to Mad, knowing that the island is artificial. Mad explains that he uses the Wanted Club for cyborg test subjects and that he plans to make Lupin his greatest cyborg, having proven himself with all that's happened. Not wanting to become a cyborg, Lupin disappears around a corner and apologises to Jigen and Fujiko before jumping off a cliff. Turns out he was faking, having managed to rescue Fujiko and the real Jigen and appearing behind Mad. He fires at Mad with his own tranquilizer and leaves him on the island to be gunned down by his cyborgs. He then leaves the Wanted Club to be rounded up by Zenigata. Another of the more out there premises for a story this time. In fact, Lupin taking on a crooked auction house could probably have made for a good story on its own, really. Kind of a pity the cyborg's weakness was discovered so easily too, as they were proving a decent threat up to then, and just become easily gunned down targets after that. Lupin is in Trafalgar Square in pursuit of the Imperial State Crown. It's set to be worn by Princess Mary at her wedding in a few days. For those curious, there is no actual Princess Mary of marriageable age at this point in time, given that the last one died in 1965. Zenigata's on a stakeout, but is mistakenly arrested for littering as he tries to put out a cigarette fire. Seems about accurate for London police, honestly. He's initially told by his arresting officers, Dover and Pepper, that he'll be held for a day to clarify things. However, Pepper makes Dover knowledgeable of Lupin's reward, so they up it to a maximum of 10 days. Dover ignores Zenigata's protests and takes some slimming pills, noting the time of noon. While on a date with Fujiko, Lupin encounters Dover and Pepper, but they escape pretty quickly. Lupin tells Fujiko of his plans for the crown, though he's interrupted by Jigen as they plan to do some more recon at the Tower of London where it's being held. Lupin spots Pepper jumping at the ravens flying and decides to prank him by making a knight's helmet float. He then disguises as a police officer and learns that Zenigata is on his way. He excuses himself to change into his Zenigata outfit, but this proves a bad move due to Zenigata still being in prison. Jigen busts out of a suit of armour to help, but they're caught in Pepper's pepper. Jigen shoots at the shaker and they escape while everyone else is coughing. They're caught by the gate, but Goemon cuts it up. Not giving up, Lupin sends a calling card telling Pepper and Dover he'll steal the crown at the wedding. Sometime before the ceremony, Lupin disguises as an old man and uses food to get a tour of Westminster Abbey from Dover. While doing so, he places several devices with timers attached, also noticing Dover's noon pills. The day of the wedding begins at 11 o'clock, but Jigen shoots the clock's hands to noon, causing Dover to wander off to take his pills. The devices activate and fire off smoke, while the lights cause a monstrous shadow to send people into a panic. No Alice this time though. Lupin lifts the crown off Mary's head and races to his car, with Goemon holding off his pursuers. Jigen, still on sniper duty, shoots out a pursuing Pepper's tyres. In response, Pepper and Dover order the tower bridge raised, and Lupin fails to jump it. Fujiko arrives to airlift him, however. As they pass by Zenigata, still in prison, Lupin sneezes and drops the crown. Angered, Fujiko drops Lupin, though he's saved by an oddly placed parachute. Turns out Jigen and Goemon manage to grab the crown, but consider leaving Lupin hanging for a while to cool off on the Fujiko fever. Stealing from my country is an outrage. Well, not really. This is another fun episode. It's kind of refreshing seeing other police officers take on Lupin. They didn't succeed, of course, but it was interesting seeing someone else's take on how to catch him. Would have thought Dover's pills would play more into the plot, though, with how much they set it up. Though I guess it does get him out of the way briefly. We begin with the gang debating musical tastes, as well as pranking and outrunning Zenigata. They reach the Kentucky Derby, and Lupin leaves a calling card attached to one of the horses, claiming he'll steal the betting money. Zenigata helps plot a route for the money, but they're intercepted on a bridge by a giant magnet. The gang pull the chunk of bridge away to discover Zenigata waiting inside, as the money was actually being transported to the Metropolitan Bank via the sewers. The gang jump into the river and are fired upon, but Zenigata wants them alive. A pool of red surfaces, but this was a setup by Lupin, who leaves some decoys for them to find. Fujiko, meanwhile, is posing as a wealthy Japanese heiress, asking to store a chest of jewels in the Metropolitan Bank overnight. The manager accepts, telling her they'll be in a time-locked safe until 7 the next morning. At the river, Zenigata starts doubting himself and dashes to the bank. The manager assures him everything is fine, demonstrating the safe's weight-sensitive flaw that even a handkerchief will trigger. That night, Lupin and Jigen emerge from the chest. After a near miss, they manage to set up a pulley system along the ceiling. Lupin then uses a drill and some nitro with a bag underneath to catch the debris to open the money container. The money is wheeled across as Zenigata continues his fruitless search. The last bag gets snagged in the pulley's ropes, and Lupin and Jigen only make it worse when they try and shake it free. It's another near miss, but they get it across just as Zenigata convinces security to have another check of the safe. The police find the decoys, with a tape recorder attached from Lupin, mocking them and telling them the message will self-destruct. Not really. Fujiko smuggles Lupin and Jigen back out through the chest, and the bank manager is none the wiser as to how the money was stolen. Even Zenigata is stumped, unknowingly passing by the gang as they celebrate their victory. Kind of funny we get a Mission Impossible shout out here, complete with Yuji Ono version of the theme tune. Mostly because a weight-sensitive flaw plays a pretty big part in the first movie 18 years later. Makes you wonder if someone was possibly a fan. Next time, another descendant of a famous detective, and our first two-part episode are included in the run-up to episode 52. Until then,